to Sticking to the Truth with Juleen Jackson and Debbie Jansen. Grab some tea and join us because we have got a big show today. Juleen, let's stick to the truth and get started.
Hi, Debbie. Oh, yes. I think I'm going to bring a lot of truth to you and to everyone today.
Oh, I know it and I love it. You've been to the executive building for a roundtable discussion that sounds so exciting. And you have big news. Dun, 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 dun. You were just interviewed a few minutes ago by NBC. I can't wait to hear about all that. Now, we had two other topics for this week, but today Juleen is our Washington, D.C. reporter. So, Juleen, tell us about what happened with NBC.
I mean, Deb, my head's going to be extra big hanging out with you. You're so dear. Yes, I did just get off the phone with an NBC. I think she's actually a producer. She says she helps produce the nightly on NBC, the nightly news with Lester Holt. I don't watch NBC, but I do know about Lester and the Today Show with Savannah Guthrie. So she said that the Capitol Hill correspondent wanted to be on the interview as well, but she is up on the Hill right now covering the potential government shutdown. And that Garrett Hawk, who is the White House senior correspondent, also is covering this story. So she really wanted to talk to me about the Maha Moms Roundtable yesterday that Secretary Kennedy, RFK Jr., and Secretary Brooke Rollins, who's the Secretary of Agriculture, was there, and Secretary Linda McMahon of Education was there, and Karoline Leavitt, the press secretary for Trump, was there, and his counsel, Elena, what is her name? Elena Haba.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, she was just on the news last night talking about how she's coming down doing with those sex traffickers and the Epstein files, and prosecution will be coming forth with those that are going to be named and indicted. So, and, heads of the FDA commissioner, the acting commissioner was there, and the senior advisor to the Surgeon General. Anyway, so a lot of really impressive ladies, and they were all ladies. There were a few men, but the wonderful thing is, as these people spoke, and then there was the panel of Maha Mamas were kind of trend-setting podcaster moms. They, that have a following, have a podcast, or have done work out in the community, have had health issues and have cured themselves, or their children have had health issues, and how they're just really loving some of the changes that are being proposed by the Health and Human Services Agency and RFK Jr. So it was really amazing to be there in this group to observe. So there was about 25, 30 observers. I was one of the observers, and I was asked, I got the call the day before, you and I, Deb, do work with Moms for America. And because I live 20 minutes from the White House, they call me from time to time. Now, given President Trump has only been in office 50 days, right? But I've already a few times gotten the call, a few hours before, saying, Juleen, can you get down there? And so it was such a pleasure. And I think one of the reasons I particularly loved it is because about 10 years ago, I changed my lifestyle, and I went from eating the standard American diet to, just processed foods and fats and sugars and all kind of fun food to eating real food. So I say, I don't eat foods that were made in a plant. I eat the real plant. I eat food that's alive, not dead food that's in a package. And subsequently, my children began to change, what they ate, and we're real active. We have some professional athletes in the family. We have yoga instructors. We have natural birth doula, deliverers. And so, my family lives the precepts by which RFK Jr. has lived and is trying to promote now. And so he said he wants to take the 465 pages of dietary guidelines under the Biden administration and make them 3 pages. He said, welcome to day 50 of this common sense revolution. And
I don't want to interrupt you here, but I'm gonna wait a minute. 465 pages for what?
Apparently, he said there's a lot of political talk in the 465 dietary guideline pages. And he's just going to cut it back to probably, look, we got to eat real foods. We got to eat more fruits and vegetables and whole grains. We have to be more active. Like 1 in 3 kids are obese, Deb. So we have these, because young children are probably being raised on chocolate milk and Cocoa Puffs, so they don't have a desire to eat, healthy food. And hence only half of the kids in the school systems today play sports. They talked about, a large chunk of young people going in to sign up for the military camp because they're too heavy, ages 17 to 24. So the statistics are alarming and they're very concerning. And he said there's a war that's going on against our kids, and they're eating unhealthy food, dangerous food with dyes and chemicals and MSG. I mean, ingredients that are illegal in Europe are the very ingredients that we're using to put in, the Doritos and the Gatorades and the Skittles and the sodas. And so he said, we want to make those same illegal ingredients in Europe illegal in America. And he said it's going to take 2 years, but we're going back to, true health care. We've been living under sick care,
Yeah. And I hope he's also talking about the extras as well as the eating. When you eat that kind of stuff and then you sit and you play video games for 4 hours. That's terrible. Or that you don't socialize yourself and get out, because a lot of eating is emotional. So if you don't have friends, you're going to replace those friends with eating. So there's a lot to that overweight kid, right?
Yeah. I mean, Secretary McMahon, who's the secretary of the Department of Education, and just yesterday, she announced they're eliminating 1,300 employees. I mean, she basically let go half the Department of Education. And she said, I'm trying to work myself out of a job because, President Trump campaigned on the fact that Washington, D.C. should not dictate how a child is educated. It should be the states. It should be the state school board or the local school board who is closest to that community of children that know how to best educate them, not some agency 3,000 miles away. So, it was interesting what Secretary McMahon said, though, and Kennedy, they all kind of piped in and said the same thing, that there's this war on these kids, and kids are being besieged by chronic stress as well. Because there's so much isolation and alienation when they just sit and do their gamings or do their doom scrolling on their phones. Yeah. And it's creating a mental illness and an addiction, so to speak, addiction to junk food, addiction to gaming, addiction to social media. And, these are all symptoms of this war on our children, that's coming to them through food. They talked about vaccines, early vaccinations that little babies get even before they're put in the arms of the mother. When they're born, they're vaccinated first. And I have an example of that just on Monday. Deb, my 25-year-old's a doula, and she's a birthing coach. And so she probably attends a birth once a week. And on Monday, she said, Mom, the baby was born and, wasn't breathing so well. So they took the baby immediately under the lights and stimulated it and then began to vaccinate the baby. And so here the mom is giving birth. It's 10 minutes have passed and the mom is like, is everything okay? And, in the meantime, they've given the baby hepatitis B. They put this goo on the baby's eyes, and they also give it a shot, I believe it's a shot of vitamin K. And Secretary Kennedy said that vitamin K is so full of other things. It's on the black box warning for Health and Human Services.
Oh
And
my
so
goodness.
it
Oh my
sounds
goodness.
good. And you know, the goo they put on babies' eyes is for sexually transmitted diseases. So even if they tested the mothers, which they test all mothers before they give birth, or at some point in that, gestational period, even if the mother, is tested negative, they treat the baby like the baby has sexually transmitted diseases, puts the goop on the eyes, which blinds, my little daughter said, it blinds the baby. I mean, the baby can't hardly see anyways, but then it's blinded with the goo. And so, these moms are tired, they're overwhelmed. They probably just trust that, a vitamin shot sounds good. And what is happening is 40% of children now have one chronic disease or condition.
Oh my
And
goodness.
they're trying
right after this, they kind of detect that?
Well, look, 2 decades ago, 1 out of 10,000 children were diagnosed with autism. Now 1 in 36 children are diagnosed with autism. So they're tying it to the amount of vaccines a child gets now has like doubled from the time you and I were vaccinated. And it's probably, gone up. My first baby was born 30 years ago. So she probably got maybe, I don't know, 60%. I'm just guessing, but they keep adding more and more of there's heavy metals in these vaccines.
Yeah.
And they're giving these babies like a dose of 6 vaccinations at once sometimes. And, Deb, don't get me started. I could go on about
you know what
all
I'm
the
seeing?
Stories.
I want to ask you a couple of questions, Juleen, and then we may have to continue this because there's so much that you're packing into this. First of all, it sounds like that when you met with them, it was not just about food. He had the education secretary there. He had other people there that he was talking to. So I appreciate the fact that he wants a well-rounded approach to how to protect our kids. Am I right about that?
Yes, he does.
Okay,
because it's not just one thing. I mean, they're noticing the impact of vaccines, the impact of ultra processed foods, the impact of, the gaming and the social media on the brain. And so it's many factors. School lunches are comprised mostly of cardboard pizza and chicken nuggets on styrofoams.
I remember.
Cafeterias don't even have washing machines because everything is just heat everything up in a microwave nowadays. Remember when you used to get homemade rolls and spaghetti?
I remember when Michelle Obama came out with that ketchup is a vegetable, so they don't have to have a lot of vegetables on their plate. I'm sorry. Oh my goodness. Yeah. This is phenomenal what you're talking about, what you're bringing to us, and we are just rolling through our time today. I think we're going to have to take this up more. But how about this, Juleen? Let's do another podcast on this, and you show us the pictures that you got, because I think those are phenomenal as well, and it will help our listeners see where you were. It looked like a fantastic meeting, and I know you've got so much information to share about the food. Tell us the one big thing you came away with from JFK and then also from the Secretary of Education. Just one big thing from each of those people.
Well, what I really loved what he said is, look, we can make all adjustments to the food and vaccines and, social media influence. But he said, more than anything, we have a spiritual crisis in this nation. And he said, we have got to give America a new spiritual purpose. And this is what a part of this Make America Healthy Again. This is going to be a part of that movement. That if we lose the spiritual movement, he said, we lose everything. I thought that was profound.
I think that is probably the most profound thing I've heard, because I see this kind of floating through all of the cabinet members, but how wonderful to bring that together and to the table when we're talking about our kids.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's like, the first cabinet meeting that the president had a week or two ago, the Secretary of HUD offered a prayer. And I mean, just the visual of all these men and women around this table, heads of the highest agencies in America, evoking God's help, is it's thrilling. And then what was really cute too, not Secretary McMahon, but Karoline Leavitt, the press secretary to President Trump, the meeting had just gotten started, and her little nanny, I guess, assistant rolls in baby, who's 8 months old. She's a new little mama, Caroline Leavitt. And baby unpacks the baby and holds the baby up. Baby sits on mama's lap the entire meeting. And I think the Secretary Brooke Rollins of Agriculture holds the baby halfway through. And I mean, I was like, I wonder if they're just going to start passing that little baby down the row of all the secretaries. And he was the cutest he didn't let out one little squawk. And she's a new little mama, and she's like, I can't nurse because of my work schedule. Does anyone know of any good formula? Because American formula is full of fillers. And one of the mamas yelled out, I get my formula from Germany, let's talk later. And so it was just really the power of women and mothers coming together who know that they are fighting for their children and for their future generations. And it was just a really cute depiction of why we're doing what we're doing for these rising generations of future leaders.
I tell you, it is about time they listen to mamas.
Yeah.
Because my big thing is the parenting, the relationships, and how to take care of your kids. So I'm interested in everything you said, but I also come at it from a point of let's bring it all together, because moms are the most powerful people on the planet. We hold the future in our hands, and we're the ones that determine what government's going to be like in 20 years, because we're raising the kid that's going to go out there and do stuff in the world. Yeah. So I love it that they're bringing together a real appreciation of moms. I think that is so important. And I love it that it seems like the White House is full of babies. We're going to put up a picture right now, one that you took. You were walking in, I think, or coming out of the meeting, and it's a picture of Elon Musk and his son and nanny. Tell us about that picture.
So we're leaving the Eisenhower Executive Building, which is right next to the White House. And lo and behold, there's Elon Musk with little X. And little X is clinging to, a little lady that does not look like the mother. So I'm assuming it's the nanny. And I'm like, well, you just never know who you're going to run into when you make your way to the White House. And it was interesting. My husband, Al, said, oh, you know why he was there, Juleen? Because he brought in every kind of electric car that he has, because President Trump bought one of his electric cars yesterday. He bought a $80,000 electric car. And he's like, well, our conclusion was, I've never seen him drive a car, but he said he bought it for his staff members to use as they go about town. And he said, he just felt badly because, I guess his car lots are being vandalized and business is going down a little bit. So he just wanted to help out his friend who's giving so much to this country. So every single one of types of electric cars that Elon Musk manufactures was in front of the White House. President Trump went out and picked his car, wrote an $80,000 check on the spot, and I guess pulled it into the White House garage.
That is great. And the reason I wanted you to talk about that here at the end is I've also heard a lot about his problems in business. I mean, I think someone said that he's lost close to $1 billion since he started doing this. He appointed people, which I'm sure they're qualified and great, to take over for him while he's working for us. But you know how that goes. People under you don't always have your same vision or what you're doing. And some of his businesses are falling a bit behind. And then on top of that, protesters are tearing down his car showrooms, setting Teslas on fire. They're throwing pipe bombs at stuff. We've had such a wonderful program today. I hate to get a little testy, but I'm going to have to. These protesters have no intelligence whatsoever. They don't realize that him doing what he's doing is actually saving us money. It is going, in the end, maybe not in the immediate, but in the end, doing what Elon is doing is going to make our country richer and better. And it will be easier for those angry little children who are pitching a temper tantrum to go out and buy what they need. Life is hard, and just because they aren't getting their way doesn't mean they have a right to destroy the solution to our country. Yesterday, it appeared that it started somewhere in the Ukraine area. His social media named X was hacked and was down for most of the day. I tried to find out how much in dollars that cost him, but I couldn't find that. But I'm sure it's in the millions, maybe even billions. I don't know. There was an interview that you saw where Elon was extremely worried about the death threats that are now in his life. Can you tell us just a little bit about that real quick?
Well, it was interesting. He was interviewed by Joe Rogan last week, and I don't know if you heard that interview, but he said when he was flying to the interview, I don't know, where is Joe Rogan, out of Arizona, I think? I'm not sure. But he said, I began to think that me coming and doing this interview and even speaking about, revealing corruption and fraud and what we're doing is potentially shortening my life. He said, I have to be careful that I don't expose too much at one time, or I don't expose certain types of corruption, and I just think of all the people in high levels in business and politics and entertainment and in higher education who for years have been grifting off this system, enriching themselves, right? Putting forth programs that they're getting some sort of financial backing. And they're about to be exposed how much money that people have grifted from our government. And he said, these people are desperate. And he said, I do worry about being killed for the information that we have and what we're exposing. And he said, a very real chance. He used the word assassination. And I mean, I think, look, this man isn't doing it to enrich himself, to get famous, to get wealthy, to anything. I mean, he was the wealthiest man of 2021. So even if business is down, I'm not thinking we have to, I don't think
we
he's
don't
ready.
need to take him a fruit basket.
No. We don't. Yeah. But, I mean, he's doing this the same reason why Trump is, they don't need money. They don't need power. They don't need fame and fortune. They're doing it because they love America. I have to think, because they have all these other things. And so I just, I thought that was you could hear it in his voice. He legitimately, and he's got children. He's got the young little guy. He's got multiple children, right? He wants to stick around for them. But he carries on and fights like President Trump.
Exactly. Well, thank you for telling us about that. It's whether you like him or not, or President Trump or anyone in the cabinet or not, they don't deserve to be afraid for their life or their family. So to end our program today, and we will consider be talking about some of this exciting news that Juleen has brought to us in another podcast. So please stay tuned. But I would like to ask our listeners to take a moment and let's get personal. I've talked to a lot of people, both conservative Christians and liberal non-Christians, and they all voice their approval of President Trump or Doge. And then someone says, when you have a person like President Trump or any of the cabinet members, and someone says, I'm going to sacrifice my life so you can succeed, I believe everyone should rally around that person and lift them up, because they're working for you and for me. They're donating their time. They're doing what they need to do to help us. Knowing that some people are violent and crazy, we must hold President Trump and his cabinet and Elon Musk in prayer and ask God to protect them, their families, and their businesses. We need to ask God to help them preserve our country. God can do miracles that other people or entities can't do. Money won't fix it. Popularity won't fix it, and walking away surely won't fix it. But if you care about America and you want to see success, there is no other solution as far as Juleen and I are concerned but to call on God for help. Please, all of you who are listening, please pray for President Trump and his family, his cabinet and their families, his workers and their families, and Elon Musk and his family. And then take it one step further. Write a card, send a letter, or make a call and let them know that you care. Thank them for the work they're doing. It won't take you long, but it will mean the world to people who are giving their lives and fortunes so you can succeed. I hope you will do that. I'm going to. And one other suggestion. I wrote a book about praying for America and the army of God. In this book, there's a lot of encouragement. I quoted one verse over and over and over. Do not be anxious. Do not be afraid. And there are other verses in this book. Fear not. Be strong and courageous. You can trust me. Fear not. It's a powerful book that doesn't tell you how to pray, but it lifts your heart and encourages you to get your motor running and to do something, but also to pray for America. You can get it on Amazon or on my website. And I promise if you read this book, you will be encouraged. Thank you so much for being with us today. Subscribe to this podcast and join us again. You can ask a question or request that we dig into a specific topic by writing Debbie at debbiejansen.com. And thanks again to our wonderful producer, Ken Jansen. This is Debbie Jansen, and I'm sticking to the truth.
And I'm Juleen Jackson, and we hope that you will keep sticking to the truth. Take care. See you next time.
Bye-bye.